First, we have Ryan Beatriu. Ryan is a journalist, has been a journalist with CNC3 Television for the last 13 years. His work in climate change started with remote coverage of COP26, which took place in Glasgow in 2021. From there, he went on to become a climate tracker fellow in climate in 2022, focusing his energies on energy transition and climate justice. He then traveled to Egypt to cover the event and amplify the issues and decisions that emerged out of that conference for the Caribbean audience. As climate change is glaringly before our eyes. Ryan really believes that not enough people understand why temperatures are hotter and why rainfall is more violent. So he sees this as his job to educate and make people more aware of what is happening. So Ryan, I'm really excited to hear from you how it is that you're, going through this process of making people understand the technicalities that exist within COP. So share with our audience how to bring that in the most effective way possible.
Thanks so much, Dizana, and thanks so much to Mariana. That was a really captivating presentation. In fact, I have a list of things that I'd like to go through, and I think I didn't have UNFCCC's website on it, but that is such an incredible tool that I think that everyone on this call, please review what Mariana said if you need to. That UNFCCC website is a great tool that you need to add to your arsenal, as well as what I'm about to tell you. So I know that we have the emojis. So if you're a first-time COP attendee, you could just raise your hand, or just give me a signal. If this is probably a second or third time, you could also kind of just raise your hand so I could just get a gauge. Because I want to talk, first of all, as Dizan was saying, I covered Glasgow from home. And then I built on that, and I was able to travel to Sharm el-Sheikh last year to cover it in person. And there's a little bit of both that everybody could take away from, whether you're in person or remote. So the first thing I want to start with is, if you're covering it remotely, I want to make sure you understand, and I want to make sure that you really understand that it is very possible to do the fronts from home, and it's happening in the other part of the world, means that your coverage is going to be a little bit depleted. It's going to be a little bit substandard. It's not going to be as great as somebody who is in Dubai. That's not true. All right. And I think that's the biggest lesson I learned in Glasgow, because when I was at home here in Trinidad and Tobago, here in the Caribbean, and I was covering it from Glasgow, I did a 6-part series that ultimately paved the way for me applying to Climate Tracker. I used that 6-part series that I did. I applied to Climate Tracker last year, which would have been 2022. Dizan and her team would have seen what I would have done from home, and they decided, you know what, let's give this guy a chance to actually go in person. So I just want you to use this opportunity. If you have the opportunity to cover it remotely, that's a big opportunity. All right, but how do you maximize it remotely? First and most importantly, I'm going to switch the first thing. I'm actually going to put now at the top, after Mariana's presentation, I'm actually going to switch the top of my list, and I'm going to put UNFCCC's website. Keep in touch with that website. I didn't realize that website is such a directory and an encyclopedia of climate change information of what's happening at COP until I saw her presentation. Keep in touch with that website. Go onto the website, learn the website in and out, where you'll get all your information of what's happening today, tomorrow, next week, what is happening with the topics that you want to discuss. Keep reading all of these newspapers. Keep reading, keep watching videos. COP is going to be everywhere. Every international network, every international newspaper, they all send their people across there. Sometimes they send more than one people. Guardian UK had an entire room of people last year. All right, the New York Times had 3 or 4 correspondents. I saw 2 political correspondents. So they send a lot of people there. They're writing on climate change every day. Sometimes they're writing on climate change almost every hour as things change. Keep reading. Follow these things on Twitter. Climate Tracker does an excellent job of keeping things rolling on Twitter. As things happen at COP, their fellows are always posting, they're always tweeting. So keep in touch with the social media platforms such as Climate Tracker and others so that you could know what is happening. Find a friend who is at COP. Everybody, there are about 50,000 people or more that attend these conferences. So somebody knows somebody. You must have a friend or a friend of a friend who's attending Dubai. Find them, get in touch with them, make friends with them. Climate Tracker has this excellent structure by which they used in 2022, where there were in-person fellows, but also remote fellows, and we would partner with each other. So Tyrell Gittins, I think, was my partner, really nice guy from Trinidad and Tobago. He might actually be on this call. And we would partner, we would be in touch every day. And Tyrell would be like, hey, what is happening? What are you working on? And I would respond to him. Sometimes I'd send him very quickie pictures from me in Sharm el-Sheikh. So make friends and keep in touch with them on what is happening on the ground. This is a big one. Don't try to cover everything at COP. COP is a huge conference. It's impossible to cover everything at COP. And if you try to do that, you're only going to end up frustrating yourself. You're only going to end up here, there, everywhere, and end up at the end to the destination of nowhere. Don't do that. So what I would suggest is that you focus on a few things. Focus on your region. So my region is the Caribbean region. I'm very passionate about amplifying what is happening with climate change in the Caribbean. So when I go to COPs, my mission has always been the same. It's never changed really. It's to amplify what is happening in the Caribbean, to amplify Caribbean voices that are at these conferences, because it's a big conference. There are a lot of big people. Sometimes the President of the United States attends. You have a lot of world leaders. And because all of these huge world leaders are attending, our small voices in the Caribbean, our prime ministers, our leaders, our authorities in climate change, their voices tend to get lost. So if you're from the Pacific, if you're from a small island developing state, if you're from Latin America, all right, focus on the issues that are affecting, and I think Mariana touched on this a little bit, but I'll go a little bit deeper. Focus on the issues that are affecting your country or your Caribbean region. That's a big deal. But I also want to say it's important, and this is why I was so happy with my COP26 coverage remotely. It's important that you don't ignore what is happening globally, all right? There are a lot of things that are happening globally that can affect our small probably that you think won't happen. So for instance, one of the things that I thought had a huge impact that a lot of people ignored was the fact that India was pushing back so hard last year against having limits on coal. All right, India was pushing back. They had marathon negotiation sessions. They really grinded everybody in. And I thought that had huge implications for small island and developing states. But India has nothing to do with the Caribbean. But that's a huge talking point at COP. These guys were literally negotiating down to the wire. They were grinding everybody into the ground. So I thought that was really interesting. So please don't neglect to cover global issues. Try to connect it with what is happening in your region, but do not ignore the global issues. Those are really, really important. It could impact your region. Again, very important. Climate change is still, in some parts of the world, still very new. And Dizan was right in reading my bio the way that she did. Here in the Caribbean, climate change is still getting to become a household word. I don't think it's there as yet, to be honest. I just don't think it's there as yet. I don't think people understand why things are changing. This year, we've had heat waves. In my lifetime, we've never used the word heat wave in Trinidad and Tobago until this year. So it's still very new. So why I say all of this is please keep reminding your audience, whether you are writing for a newspaper, whether you are doing it for television, whether you are doing it for online, keep at the front of your mind, reminding your audience why this is important, why I'm telling you this story. All right, that's really important. If you don't do that, you risk alienating your audience. People are going to wonder, why is this guy telling me about something that I don't care about? Because at the end of the day, we have to be realistic as climate journalists and climate reporters. We have to be realistic. This is not a topic that everybody is interested in. This is not entertainment with, I don't know, Nicki Minaj or Jay-Z that everybody gravitates to. It's not that. It's a very boring topic, but it's a very important topic. So we have to keep reminding our audience why it's important, that why we are telling you this, how this is affecting your life, how this will affect your life. Find creative ways. Break down your information, please. A lot of climate change stuff, a lot of things that happen at COP, It's very technical. People don't understand it. We ourselves sometimes need somebody to explain it to us. So we need to explain it to our audience. Break down your terms. All right, get connected with local stakeholders because you'll be covering it from your country. All right, you have the opportunity right here at home to get connected with your Ministry of Climate Change, with your line ministers, with your prime ministers, with whoever is in charge with local climate authorities. Get in touch with them. Let them know, hey, I'll be covering COP28 from here at home. A lot will be happening in Dubai, but I want to try to get a comment from you. Should this topic come up? Should climate finance come up? I want to get a comment from you. Put them on high alert, feed them out. See if they have anything that they'd like to say pre-COP. See if there's anything that they would like to contribute to. So get in touch with them. Do not wait until the conference starts on Wednesday. That's too late. Get in touch with your stakeholder from now. Make a list if you need to. Today is the 22nd, so you still have a lot of time. You could get in touch with them, make a list, get in touch with them. So that's really from a remote perspective. And like I said, there's a lot in this for both remote and in person, but I want to kind of go into the in-person aspect now. But people who are covering it remotely, there's still a lot for you in this, including this one. Have a plan. Listen, your plan never works out at COP. All right, I'm sorry to break it to you. Your plan, whatever your plan is, it's not going to work out. It's just not going to work out. All right, that's just a reality. But have a plan. Dizan, I think you might have my plan for COP27. If you could just pull that up.
Yep, let me just share my screen now.
Sure, thanks.
By the way, Ryan, thank you for preaching. Thank you for preaching. I'm here for it. Can you see it?
Yes, I thank you so much.
Great.
Okay,
I think Ryan, are you there? Yeah,
I'm
you're back.
here now.
You're back.
My internet might have dropped out. I'm sorry. Okay, so everybody's hearing me, I think. So even before I jumped on the plane, I had created this content schedule. And out of this content schedule, I don't know, I'm probably got in 15% of this, to be honest. Yeah, if I got in 15% of this, I got in a lot. Because by the time I got to Sharm el-Sheikh, most of this, you know, the big thing that everybody was talking about, there was a huge fight in quotes, it wasn't a literal fight, but there was a huge fight for loss and damage funding, and small island and developing states, almost like David and Goliath, decided, you know what, we're going to fight for this, and if we're not getting it, then fine. We're just, what are we doing here? We pack our stuff and we leave. And there was a huge debacle about that, and it really became about loss and damage funding. So meaning a lot of the things that I would have planned to discuss or at least write about in my content plan didn't really pan out, but that's fine because you have to go with the waves, all right? You can't control the waves. You have to ride the waves at COP. But my point is that if things had not worked out, and some days it didn't, some days I would be struggling for a story, and what would I do? I would go back to my content plan and I would say, okay, let me see if I can pursue this story, if I can pursue that story, if I can pursue that story. All right, let me just move along because I don't want to be too long as well. So my point is, find a calendar. It doesn't have to be as pretty as this one, but make a schedule, make a content plan so that you have a plan to fall back on. All right. Speaking about content plan, if you're headed to COP, prepare for the smaller stories, all right? This is something I had to learn the hard way. There are so many stories at COP, at these conferences, so many of them. Of course, there are the hard-hitting ones, there are the negotiations, there are the big interviews that you want to get, all fine. But there are such smaller stories that people often overlook. And I think that it makes very interesting stories. So it doesn't necessarily have to end up in the newspaper. It doesn't necessarily have to end up on TV. It can end up on social media. So I saw like last year at COP27, there was this really interesting visual that I saw. I was walking through one of the booths and I saw two bishops, two priests, Roman Catholic priests. So I go up to them and I'm like, are you guys lost? What are you doing here? You know, I'm not expecting to see two Roman Catholic priests at COP27. And they said, no, actually, the Vatican has, the Vatican sends us and we monitor and we engage in negotiations and we talk and we engage as well. I was absolutely shocked by it. So there are so many differing stories. Another one was that Pakistan had record flooding last year, incredible flooding, terrible flooding last year. And it's just so strange that Pakistan had a wonderful booth, and when I was passing Pakistan and I was talking to one of the guys there, we ourselves in Trinidad and Tobago, as I was in the beautiful sunshine of Sharm el-Sheikh, we ourselves had incredible rainfall here in Trinidad and Tobago, and also we had a lot of flooding. I was able to connect what was happening in Pakistan in a story to what was happening in my own country and ask them about their mitigation measures, ask them about what they're doing in their country that we could possibly adapt in our country. My point is that there are a lot of these smaller stories happening at COP that you should keep your eyes and ears out for. There was also an interesting one where I saw Ukraine. Now, last year, Russia invaded Ukraine. So, I just thought it was very interesting that I didn't expect to see a Ukrainian booth, but I did, and they were very welcoming, and they spoke to us. They gave me a great story as well. So, keep your eyes and ears out. Not only keep your eyes and ears, make friends there. Don't be shy at COP. That's the one rule that you need to take away. Go there, make friends. Some people are very busy. It's not that they're ignoring you. It's not that they don't like you. They're just very busy. They're very focused on what they have to do, but make as many friends as possible. Your friends will help you and your friends will save you. Okay, so make as many friends. Go talk to people. If you get snubbed, it's not because they don't like you, but people are very focused on what they have to get done at COP because they have very strict timelines, deadlines. It's all different types of time zones that they're dealing with. So everybody's dealing with something different, but make as many friends as possible and keep in touch with them. All right. Prepare for long hours at COP. There is no COP. You're getting very early. Sometimes you'll be leaving very late. Most times you'll be leaving very late. Eat as often as you need to. Stay hydrated, but prepare for long hours at COP. I'm wrapping up now because I know that I don't want to take too long. Also, very important, in addition to preparing for long hours, prepare to be frustrated. It's a very frustrating experience. And it's not frustrating because of logistics. Sometimes it's just frustrating because you're struggling to get a story. I remember when I touched down in Sharm el-Sheikh, for the first 3 days, I felt like just getting back on a plane and getting back home because I felt like I was accomplishing nothing. I was like, what is the point of being here? I'm struggling for a story. I'm not really churning out the type of content that I had planned for. I have a whole content plan and I can't even write a story. It happens. It happens to everybody. I spoke to Chris Wright, who is the founder of Climate Tracker, and Chris was like, calm down, it's fine. It happens to everybody. For the first 3 days, you're lost. You're not really sure what's happening. You're trying to learn. You're getting lost everywhere you go. You can't even find yourself back to the media center. It's all fine. All right, prepare to be frustrated. It's fine. It'll all calm down in a few days. Just remain as calm as possible. I added this to my list when I saw Mariana's presentation. UNF, that Spectre document on the UNFCCC's website. Please get familiar with it. Go onto the UNFCCC website and get familiar with it. That Spectre document is a really good document to add to the list of tools that you need to have for COP. Plan ahead every day. Plan ahead for the next day. When you're wrapping up your day, plan ahead on what you are going to do for the next day. At least have a plan to start that day with. So that's a little bit of what I wanted to tell everyone who is going remotely as well as in person. But the most important thing to do at COP, whether you're doing it remotely or in person, all right? And this might sound cliche, it might sound stupid, but the most important thing is to have fun.